We are live. Good morning. Welcome aboard. I'm right on time today, if you can imagine that. So, Lenny wanted to sleep in today, and that he did, I will say. I'm used to getting up really early, and today I was falling asleep on the chair again. So I'm a little behind, but I'm on time, so that's what counts the most. You can listen on Spreaker, or you can listen or watch the video. You might have to refresh for video because I just fixed up the live page. So hope everybody's having a good day. We are having game 6 tonight of the World Series, and we are going to preview that and talk a little bit about next year's values. I read a couple of really good articles over at RotoWire, and that we will discuss. Morning, Eddie Heckman, Malpal, Al Cola's here. We have Greg, nice to see you. Well, George says he's always here, but Kevin's here. Nice to see you, Kevin. Stardog. Tonight, I really don't want it to end. You know, I really think that it seems like Tampa Bay is really in a bad spot right now, that that their hopes and dreams are being shattered as we speak. They're down 3-2. But here's what I heard on MLB radio this morning. He said that in the last 40 years, the World Series has been tied at 2-2 16 times. And of those 16 times, the team that won Game 5 goes on to win the World Series only half the time. So it's not like all hope is not lost. So 8 times the guys that lost Game 5 won the World Series, and 8 times the guy that won Game 5 won the World Series. So it's not as bad as we think it is for the Tampa Bay. Although, I mean, are they really? It just feels like the Dodgers are such a better team. They're especially, I mean, if you want to talk about hitting, it's like the Tampa Bay Rays just, their key hitters have stopped hitting for the World Series, and they really need to turn that around. And that could happen in just one game. It could happen. So we're hoping for Brandon Lowe to, do what he did in the regular season. And Rosarina can't be the only guy on the team hitting. So tonight they do have a chance. We have Blake Snell going up against Tony Gonsolin. I don't know for sure if they plan on using him as an opener. I think he's probably the least sure thing in the rotation for the Dodgers. Like, as far as, the choice of pitchers, they'd probably be better off if they had Dustin May in there, but we'll see what happens. The Dodgers the World Series is obviously being played in Texas, so nobody really has home field advantage in this case, but the Dodgers seem to have a lot more fans at the game than the Tampa Bay Rays do. Everybody knows that the Dodgers haven't won a World Series since 1988. But the Dodgers haven't won the World Series at home since 1963. It was the only World Series that they did win at home. So all the rest of the World Series victories have been clinched on the road. And so, I mean, it doesn't really matter because Texas is not home field for anybody. But if you watch the games, and you could see the fans that they do have in the ballpark, which is not very many, but they do have some fans there, which is nice. They are mostly Dodger fans. So it's going to feel as if they're at home. So it says that they definitely make up a bigger percentage at Arlington than they have at any other potential World Series clincher in nearly 60 years. So, I mean, it does mean something. The Dodgers, they were the home team for games 1 and 2. The Rays were home team for games 3 through 5. And then games 6 and 7, the Dodgers will be at the home team. Blake Snell is going to pitch tonight. He is the only hope that the Tampa Bay Rays have at this point, because their starting pitcher has just been abysmal. Blake Snell is the only one that actually had a decent game, a decent outing this World Series for the Tampa Bay Rays. He no-hit the Dodgers for 4 2/3 in Game 2, but then he got in trouble in the 5th inning and Tampa Bay facing elimination, we can assume that Cash is going to be aggressive with his bullpen. I assume that. Like, we don't really know, but remember the last time he took Blake Snell out when there was no runs scored at that point. There were runners on base. There were, some signs that he was not doing well, but they lost that game. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when the time comes where Blake Snell is, maybe in the 5th inning and he's starting to run into a little bit of trouble. Do you trust your pitcher and allow him to get out of a mess that he got himself into? I really think that it's so important to allow your pitchers to get through situations that are sticky like that, because especially in a game like this, even if you didn't make the right decision, or even it doesn't really matter the outcome. I think what matters most is how I'm not a big fan of feelings. I really like facts over feelings, but I do think that there's something to be said about a way that a pitcher feels and his confidence level when he's given the opportunity to bail himself out. It really contributes to mound presence, and not that Blake Snell is lacking in that department at all, but I don't know. What do you guys think of that? Do you think you should leave the pitcher in to try to get himself out of the inning, say if there's 2 runners on base? And honestly, it's all or nothing right now. It's the most important decision that Kevin Cash will make all season. Do you want Blake Snell next year or Walker Buehler? Lenny wants to know if you want Blake Snell or Walker Buehler next year. Correa or Seager. 2 guys that I was totally down on entering this season. I was like, Carlos Correa and Corey Seager, they just get drafted in because of their name, because they just weren't performing. But they both came through this season, and I will admit that I was a little bit harsh on both of them. They are just absolute studs right now. Both of them very much surprised me, and I'm sure they didn't surprise most people, because I was not in the majority with my ideas on Correa or Seager. So Dave Roberts is going to, I think his job could be on the line. I mean, how many times has he taken the Dodgers to late in the playoffs or the World Series? I think they've been in most of the recent World Series, and they've just haven't been able to get it done. So the righty Gonsolin is starting for the Dodgers. Gonsolin is going to start what he hopes will be the Dodgers' first World Series clinching victory in 32 years. He's a rookie, right-handed. He's made 3 appearances so far this postseason, and including 2 starts. He gave up 8 runs in 7 2/3 innings, and that includes the game 2 when he started, but only went 1 1/3 innings and surrendered a solo home run, and they lost the game 6-4. So he's 0-2 in the postseason with a 9.39 ERA and 9 strikeouts. And Blake Snell is 2-2 this postseason with a 3.33 ERA and 28 strikeouts. Holy moly, that's a lot of strikeouts. He has completed more than 5 innings in 5 of his 16 starts this season. So not very many if you think about it. I mean, only 5 of his 16 starts did Blake Snell make it through the 5th inning. I really doubt they're going to leave him in past the 5th inning. If they even leave him in through the 5th inning, that'll be surprising. So what about the lineup? We have Yandy Diaz. He got 2 hits in game 5 on Sunday night, and that should get him obviously into the lineup. But will he be batting leadoff? Does he bat leadoff? Yandy Diaz. Austin Meadows leadoff. Austin Meadows sat the other day against a lefty. So I think it'll be either Yandy Diaz or Austin Meadows to lead off. And the other one will probably be the DH. Let's see. The Dodgers punished the Rays bullpen in Game 4, but they went hitless against the Rays relievers in the final 4 innings of Game 5. So the bullpen strikes again, and Austin Barnes will probably start at catcher. It does say that history is on the Dodgers side. It's the 8th time in franchise history that they have taken a 3-2 lead in a best-of-7 series. They're 6-1 in the previous 7, with the only loss coming in the 1952 World Series. Of the 6 series wins, 2 came in Game 6. So that was in 1959 and 1981. And for all the MLB teams, the team with the 3-2 lead in the World Series has gone on to win 44 of 67 previous times. That means 65.7% of teams that lead 3-2, they go on to win the World Series. So that kind of like decimates the whole idea of the 2-2, because we're not 2-2 anymore. The teams are not 2-2; they're 3-2 now. But I don't know how much that changes, because it said that teams that are 2-2, or the World Series 2-2, right? The tied at 2-2, their chances of winning the World Series at that point are still half and half, because half of them lost Game 5, the other half won Game 5 to go on and win the World Series. So it does say that 65.7% of teams with a 3-2 lead in the World Series go on to win the World Series. The Rays have only had one quality start this entire postseason. Tyler Glasnow in Game 2 of the Wild Card Series against the Blue Jays. Oh my God, the whole postseason, they've had one quality start. He threw 6 innings, 2 earned runs, and struck out 8. And I guess that just goes to show you that they're quick to pull starting pitchers, and I don't blame them. I don't think that's going to change today. I don't think we're going to see Blake Snell going into the 7th inning. Although it would be nice to have the Rays get a decent start, a quality start. We know what that means, like that, whatever that means, quality start. So, I mean, a quality start is 6 innings, but you can allow just basically if you get through 6 innings, you have a quality start for sure. Okay, so they just haven't. It's up to Snell, Blake Snell. He's got he's got the confidence for it. I think he's got the attitude for it. I think he's going to be, I think he's going to be calm out there. I don't think Gonsolin is a great choice, but they've already gone, they have their top 3 guys. They have, 2, Kershaw and Buehler. They've been both very good. Buehler has been excellent in postseason, not just this year, but even as we go back. But his season overall was not very good. So where do you draft Walker Buehler next year? Let me see what we've got going on in the chat room. Oh, they're talking about shortstops. That means my show is really interesting if you're talking about shortstops. Good morning, Gallo. Big Al on the prowl. Nice to see you. Stardog, good morning. So you think that the Dodgers blew it by getting rid of Maeda and Ryu? When they've had such a deep rotation, that half the guys that deserve to be in the rotation haven't been able to fit in the rotation for the last few seasons. And I think that I didn't do any more in looking into this since we talked about this on either Friday or Monday, but we did talk about Maeda and Ryu, and we were like trying to figure out who they got back in return. And I do believe that there was like a three-way trade that went on with Mookie Betts, and definitely the Red Sox got Verdugo, but the Dodgers got Mookie Betts, and they gave up. Weren't those 2 pitchers involved in the Mookie Betts trade? And I definitely think that Bauer is going to stay a Cincinnati Red. Yeah, just bring up Bauer, right? So Bauer loves Cincinnati. He talked about how happy he is there and how he just really felt that he didn't even know how happy he could be playing baseball because he forgot. Like, he said that just being on the team with people that like understand this, you know, what he loves to do, which is work with the TrackMan machines and like do the spin rate and driveline baseball and all this. They really he just says he just feels happy. He just fits in. These guys are like his real, you know, he feels like they're his real friends. I don't think he had a easy time making friends in the last two teams that he was on. Definitely didn't have an easy time making friends in Arizona. But I think as he's grown older and he started to mature and he started to like realize what it is about him that is turning people off, that he was able to, you know, try to at least express himself better. And even though I do believe that he got along great with the people in Cleveland, I mean, that I just feel that for sure he's happier in Cincinnati. He loves it there, and I think that he is going to stay there. I think that they're going to be willing to offer him a decent amount of money. They've invested in a couple, you know, key additions to the team, and I mean, he not only the benefit that they give from having him on their team, but having him as a kind of like mentor to the young pitchers on the team, to the young catchers, to like just the benefit that he provides to the pitching staff is not really measurable in numbers. But okay, so let's talk about Clay. Oh yeah, okay. So Lenny was talking about the lack of starting pitching for the Dodgers, but I mean, you don't really notice it because the lack of the Rays starting pitching efficiency is just totally overshadowed the fact that no, the Dodgers rotation is not deep. They have Kershaw, Buehler, and then they have Urias. They've the whole pitching strategy for the Dodgers was to use Kershaw, Buehler twice, and then Urias one time, and then mix and match the other two games. And one of those mix and match games is coming today. So we'll see. And they're trying to clinch a title. We'll see what happens. Bullpen has a 5.57 ERA for the series. They haven't been that good, but they will be fully rested. And there's a ton of them. Okay, there's a ton of them. They're very deep. They need to really come through, though. They haven't been very good once you get past the starting pitcher. And then can Arozarena is going to be so expensive next year in drafts. I will say right now that there's going to be somebody in your league that is going to draft him way too early. I'm thinking round like 3 or 4. That's just my guess because he just came out crazy good, and it won't be me that drafts him. That I mean, you know, the last couple seasons we've seen Vladimir Guerrero Jr. go. A couple seasons ago he was going in round 4, and then last year he did slip down, but he was still going relatively high, I think. But now is the time to draft a guy like him. Now is the time because he is going to fall down in the draft board. He's going to fall down, and now you're going to actually finally probably get the stats that you expected to get out of him for the last couple seasons that you didn't get because he's still a rookie. And we all know the saying, rookie is a rookie is a rookie. But Randy Arozarena, where are you guys going to draft him next year? How much are you going to pay for Randy Arozarena? Let's start the bidding at $8. Who's going to go up more? 8. Al says he'll take Arozarena in the 6th inning. Okay, so Kevin says that Maeda ended up being for Graterol after a 3-way deal was nixed. Yes, I remember that. Okay, Graterol came over from the Twins. It was a 3-way until the Red Sox backed off. Yes, Graterol. So Gonsolin and May are not good openers. They're untested. And Dave Roberts says that Kershaw, Buehler, and Urias are not available tonight. I would think that Urias would be if they're in a position to close it out. But they have so many. They really don't have a shortage of bullpen guys. You know, like I can. And like Urias is also untested, really. I mean, I think he's been okay this in the playoffs, but he's still very young. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Look at them go. They're all bidding on Arozarena. Okay, we have 9. DK Luce says 9, and then Al Cola tops him at 10. DK Luce goes 11, Lenny 12, Douglas chimes in with 12 too, Al Cola 13, DK Luce 13, Jeter Luna's here. Hi, Jeter and Tito Luna. Nice to see you. Are you sure Jeter Luna's here? He might be at school, Leonard. But if he is, hello, Jeter Luna. We like saying your name. I think that's really it. We do. So DK Luce and Al are tied at 13. That does that seem high? I don't know. So okay, that's. I feel like there's probably a lot of other players that I would choose over him for 13, but that's just me, and I'm not always right. So there we go. All right. So for all the talk of the Rays offense being Randy and all the guys who aren't Randy, it's worth noting that Arozarena doesn't actually have the highest OPS on the team, okay, in the World Series. Amazing, right? Because he's breaking records all over the place. But actually, the Rays have Kevin Kiermaier has the highest OPS on the team this World Series. And it's not just him. Manny Margot, Yandy Diaz, and Michael Brosseau have started to hit. Okay, Manny Margot's been hitting the entire playoffs. And I'm not kidding. I know that his batting average is hella crappy. And I know that he is Malpal has I think Malpal knows Margot better than most of us because he was on the Padres. And, Malpal is not a fan of Margot. So there'll be more talk about Margot going into next season. It probably is going to make him more noticed. Like his price tag is probably going up because of how good he is doing. But the disappointments on the Rays are Brandon Lowe. He's got 3 home runs. Those are his only hits of the series. Joey Wendell, Willie Adames, and Austin Meadows are all hitting under the Mendoza line, if you can imagine that. The Rays will mix and match with all of the presumed Dodgers pitching changes, and they need to eke out every run that they can. Otherwise, the wait for Lau and company to get going is going to run out of time. So if the World Series ends tonight, who is the MVP? That's going to be an interesting discussion because Corey Seager is hitting 471. Justin Turner, though, has more extra base hits than Corey Seager, if you can believe that. And Justin Turner, by the way, what a disappointment. What a disappointment for like the normal season. The one time that he hits any home runs, like I think he had 2 home runs all season. And then I had him on my bench, and in the last week of Tout Wars, I had him on my bench and he hit 2 home runs in one game. How annoying is that? And now he comes around, he's hitting like crazy because he is a postseason monster. For those of you doing postseason leagues, those are so much fun. The postseason league is a lot of fun, and I do think Donkey is going to win that league, although I can't guarantee that because Fantrax hasn't had stats, and we don't really know. Okay, so, and then you have Max Muncy, who leads the team in RBIs, and he's reaching base 522 OBP, okay? On base percentage, 522. What about Kershaw? Kershaw finally gets wins in the World Series that we've all been waiting for him to accomplish. And then if Buehler does somehow pitch again in Game 7, then he wins the game, then he could be in the discussion for MVP as well. So if the World Series ends tonight, who's the MVP? Put that in the chat room, and we'll check in a second. Do the Rays have what it takes to make it happen tonight? There's been several moments in the World Series where the Rays looked like they were in trouble, like today, but they're down 3-2 with struggling starters and a Dodgers lineup eager to feast on their Blake Snell after the 4th inning. So it says, does this look any darker, though, than it looked when Brett Phillips was at the plate with 2 outs and 1-run deficit in the 9th inning of Game 4? This team has fought back every opportunity all season long, and it's the 3rd consecutive series that they're facing elimination, and they're still there. So, be that whatever it is. I don't put a lot past them. I definitely think they're feisty, and I was listening, like, their whole culture in the clubhouse, the way that they go about things is really that they're they don't spend a lot of money and they don't have a lot of fans. They're not like the Yankees where, people expect them to win. So I think that takes a lot of stress off of them. And they have this attitude where they're going to try things and see if it works. With the payroll that they have, it's kind of like, Moneyball, where they have to be willing to do things that other teams are not willing to do. And one of those is that, like, there's the shifts that they do, the opener that they use. They've done a lot of things that are non-conventional, and it works for them. And I think that, when you play for the Tampa Bay Rays, you're happy. You're satisfied in the fact that, like, you feel like your voice matters, and you feel like, you don't have so much pressure on you to stick to what works. Like, they're willing to try new things, and they've been at the forefront of a lot of things in baseball that have stuck. The shift is crazy. I mean, we're going to talk about the shift in a minute, because I read a great article about the shift and some stats like that. So anyways, the Dodgers haven't, listen to LeBron. He says that the Dodgers haven't done anything yet. They were 1 win away in 2017, and the Astros pounced all over Yu, Darvish, in the first 2 innings of Game 7. The Dodgers have built their entire roster, reconstructed their entire franchise to earn this one last win. They have 2 chances to claim it, but the longer it takes them, the more that fear can't help but rise. That nagging worry, of course. Is it ever going to happen? The Los Angeles best take care of this now, because a Game 7 has the potential to awaken all sorts of demons. The Dodgers have worked so hard to get to this exact point. They better finish it off now while they still have a chance. And that is very true. So that's going to be the preview for Game 6 tonight. And Lenny is going to come on after me and talk some I don't know. I didn't have a lot to talk about, but I do have a couple things. So Todd Zola was talking about at RotoWire the projections, and how do we, like, he likes to get his projections done by the 1st of November. And he does a lot of work and asks a lot of questions to himself about, like, how am I going to utilize these 2020 stats to do projections? And he says that he has spent more time this year than ever before, because every year, of course, it does take some time to, like, fiddle with, where things changed, and, the different, did stolen bases rise? Did strikeouts rise? Did all these things? He tries to look at the overall picture, and he says that his assumption is that regardless of how you derive your player expectations, it's going to take more effort this year than it has in the past. And he says, because of that, it's going to be human nature to have more faith in your outcome. The more work you put into it, the more faith you put into it. And that is going to be completely wrong and bad, because, I mean, he says, after all, why do so much work if you aren't going to trust all the work that you put in? And the problem is that he says the opposite should be true. The need for extra attention is actually cause for less certainty in the end product. And in this case, we're talking about draft rankings. So it seems counterintuitive, but if you think things through, it makes sense, which I do agree that it makes sense, that just because you have to put more work into it doesn't mean that it's more reliable. Projections are super unreliable to begin with. And now we're throwing in this half season or a third of a season, and we have to try to figure out what we're going to do with these stats. Like, how are we going to make our projections? How much do we put into it? I already know that, like, in the chat room, the group of people that come to the chat, we all have different ideas of how much we're putting into 2020. I mean, it ranges from basically like nothing to that's all I'm going to use. So nothing to all. And he goes on to say that the overall impact of more offense in the So then I was reading an article from Jason Collette talking about the DH and the, like, what affected the DH have on the stats this past season. And he says that the overall impact of more offense in the National League was not as prevalent as we thought it might be. So consider that if the league decides not to continue the universal DH in 2021, the impact of the regionalized schedule comes into play a bit, okay? Because there was the schedule that was very different this season because of COVID. They're probably not going to continue. We don't know, but I've heard rumors that they're not going to continue the DH next season, which sucks for fantasy. Because I mean, even though Colette says it just didn't make that much of a difference. So I do have a sheet here that I will share with you. Let's see. So these are the final numbers for pitching in the National League. It shows little difference from the 2019 numbers. As you can see, the strikeout percentage was relatively, they're still both 23 percentile. Walk didn't go up that much. Average didn't change very much, 247 and 242. That very small change. The whip, look at the stats. Like between 2019 and 2020, there is very little difference between the stats. And so he goes on to say that in 2019, 20 of the 162 games a National League team played were interleague opponents, but only half of those games would involve a DH. So 6% of NL games involved the DH, whereas 100% of the games in 2020 involved the DH. So in theory, we would absolutely see a rise in production from the 9th spot in the lineup, but we would also expect to see a noticeable change from the 8th spot in the lineup. And here's the offensive output from the 8th spot for the National League clubs. Pitchers did not automatically pitch around that spot. And you can actually see that the 8th spot struck out more than they did in 2019, walked less than they did in 2019. It's no secret that NL pitchers tend to pitch around that spot in the lineup and take their chances facing the pitcher early in games, or forcing the opposing manager to go to the bullpen earlier than desired when an offensive opportunity presents itself. But the offensive output from the 8th spot for National League clubs played out as such in 2020, as pitchers did not automatically pitch around the 8th spot. There were more strikeouts, fewer walks, but slightly more offensive output from that spot in the lineup. The change was more noticeable in the 9th spot of the lineup. Okay, so here we have the final numbers for pitching in the National League show little difference from the 2019 numbers. We already looked at that. Okay. So it goes on to say that the overall impact of more offense in the National League was not as prevalent as we thought it might be. So consider, we already said that, the league may need to keep the universal DH in play to help stem the ever-growing concerning offense trends across the league. 2020 was the 11th consecutive season where league-wide strikeout rate failed to improve from one season to the next. 4.1% of recorded pitches in 2020 came and had velocities of at least 97 miles per hour, nearly doubling the percentage of pitches at the start of the last decade. These guys right here that I'm showing you, Michael Brantley, all these guys are free agents coming up, and they're all DH free agents. Look at this class of free agents that will be available for the DH spot. And I just hope that they keep the DH spot. I love it. I think that it's absolutely makes it better for drafting, makes it better for fantasy all around. But these guys will be free agents. So then a different article by Colette talks about these 2 tweets that he saw. And this one from Joe Sheehan, it talks about infielders are better than ever at turning double play chances into double play. Ground balls are death, right? It's the league converted at a recorded high of 32.7% of ground balls with runners on first base into double plays this season, besting the previous high of 32.5% in 2017. So they're just getting really good at fielding ground balls. And also with the shifts, we're talking about the shifts. The ground ball pitchers are good, right? So then the next tweet that we have here is from Justin Choi. He works at Prospect 365. And the shift 34% of the time in 2020, the teams are using shifts. One potential effect is the value of pulled ground balls is at an all-time low. Hitting opposite ones, in contrast, seems more and more like a legitimate option. So the league shifted in just 14% of plate appearances 5 seasons ago, but shifted 34% of the time in 2020. They're talking about making the shift illegal. Like, they're talking about getting rid of the shift completely, which I say is a bunch of bunk, because if you can't figure out how to hit the ball to the opposite side of the park, then that's just on you. Like, that's your problem. That's your weakness, okay? And then teams are going to work around that to get it done. And so the number of shifts against left-handed hitters has more than doubled, while the shifts against righties has nearly quadrupled, okay? So if you're looking for batters with a good batting average on opposite field grounders since the start of 2019, here's your list of guys. Adam Eaton, Colton Wong, Eric Hosmer, Cesar Hernandez, I think I'm going to be targeting him all over the place. If he doesn't go too high, I'm hoping that he'll still be under the radar a little bit, because he bats leadoff, and he is an excellent. I'll give Lenny all the credit for that one, because he didn't give up on Cesar Hernandez, and he had a new team and everything, and he did excellent. So these are the guys that are hitting a good batting average on opposite field ground balls. The number of batted ball events which involve an opposite field ground ball are not very many, though. So rather than just targeting hitters who show a propensity to hit the ball the other way, maybe we should be leery of those who show heavy pulled ground ball tendencies to begin with. So if they're always hitting the ground ball to the opposite side, then the shift is going to happen, and that's not really going to help them out much. But there are opportunities to look for hidden pitcher gyms who are able to generate ground balls, okay? And that would be these pitchers here. Let me make this bigger so we could see it. So here are the top 20 generators of pulled ground balls when combining 2019 and 2020 data. So it's like, if you're going to take a chance on a guy that produces a lot of ground balls and doesn't have a lot of velocity, then if you're going to take a chance on a guy that doesn't have a lot of velocity, find a guy with a lot of ground balls, right? They don't get a lot of strikeouts, but it's at a time in the draft where you're basically trying to mitigate risk at this point. So it's late in your draft where you say, okay, what's the upside? What's the risk? Not just what's the upside, but what's the floor? And so looking for ways to reduce the risk is a good idea. And you can see here that Adrian Hauser, I like. What about Herman Marquez, right? He pitches in Colorado. He was actually really good this season. Do you guys trust him for next season? Okay, so in the league, Herman Marquez, Antonio Senzatella, and Kyle Freeland were 1, 2, and 3 in the league for percentage of pulled ground balls in 2020. And 2 of those 3 pitchers finished the season with ERAs 3.75 or lower. And they held opponents to a batting averages of 245, 253, and 277, respectively. And that's it. So, Lenny, get ready to come on. I'm good. I'm going to be in the chat room now, and I love it better there. We can listen to Lenny tell us tidbits. Thank you. So you're on, Leonard.